Sophia here from My Great Challenge. Welcome back to my channel and my happy place. Yes, it is a sewing video. I told you a couple of weeks ago that I was going to start a new sew along, and that's what we're doing. So I have a few things I want to share with you first, and then I just want to let you know that I'm going to keep those videos as short as possible because I understand that a lot of you want to learn to sew as well. I am not a professional at all. I'm learning to sew myself, but I do quilt, different technique, but I do know my way around the sewing machine. So why am I doing this series? And I don't want to talk too long, okay, because you really want to dive into it. I get it, me too. That's something I've always wanted to learn, not because I've watched it when I was a little girl, but because it's something I always wanted to learn. And I'm here to tell you, I'm going to be exactly 50 on September 15th this year. The big 50, and it's never too late. I'm here to encourage you and push you if that's the push you need. If you wanted to learn to sew, it's never too late. I'm going to learn a new bunch of techniques with this particular series. I'm probably gonna make mistakes. A lot of you have been giving me wonderful advice. That's the only way I'm going to learn. I'm going to make mistakes. You guys will correct me. I will show you the proper way to do it in the following video, or I will discuss it in the following video. I don't know how many parts there's going to be, but the bottom line is that I want to document my journey as I'm learning to sew. Without further ado, what are we doing for this series? And I talked about it in, I can't remember which video. I think it had to do with staycation. We're doing this. So I'm going to give you close-ups on it. This is the McCall's M7838, and this is supposedly an easy pattern to follow, whatever that means. It says easy on it. This is size 14 to 22, and I have to tell you, I have learned from you guys that the sizing on the patterns has nothing to do with the sizing you'll find in stores. So right now I'm a size 12 because I've lost weight. I'm probably going to be a 16 or 18 on the pattern because you have to take your measurements, and I'm going to show you how to do that. So don't despair when you buy your first pattern, or if you already purchased this pattern. And by the way, the link is down below. It's not too late. The sizing on this will not match your regular sizing. So if you think you're small, you may end up being a large. If you think you're an extra large, you may end up being a 2X. Don't worry about that. And the sizing from a McCall pattern will change to a Burda pattern or a Vogue pattern. So don't think that the numbers here, the little sizing over here, is going to be your sizing forever when you sew. It's going to change from pattern to pattern, and that's the reason why they give you the pattern sizes in the back, which we're going to look in a second. So things you're going to need, obviously we're going to go through supplies. You do need the pattern itself, and I purchased two, but I can't tell you why yet. I'll tell you later. But anyway, so I have the pattern, I have the fabric, which I already pre-shrunk, and thanks to you guys, because I would not have thought about doing that. And some people do it for quilting, some people don't. I never did it for quilting, and I never had any problem, but I think that's because I wash everything on gentle cycle and cold water. But anyway, in order to pre-shrink the cotton, I purchased 3.5 yards. That's what I'm going to need for one shirt. And I washed it in the hottest water level possible, the hottest temperature on my machine, and I also dried it at the hottest possible level because it's 100% cotton. So it didn't damage the fabric, or what it did is that it pre-shrunk it for me. It's very essential that you do that, take that extra step, because you're going to make a garment that may fit a little bit snug, like the tunique was fitting snug on me the last time I tried it 2 weeks ago, and once I wash it and put it through the dryer and everything, it's going to shrink on me because I did not pre-wash the fabric, and then it's gonna be beyond snug. Okay, so I purchased 3.5 yards of the fabric. I got buttons. This is a pack of 12 and these are just regular white buttons or pearlescent, whatever they call them. And I have 2 reference guides. The first one is the Reader's Digest Complete Guide to Sewing, which I've had for many years. It's a little beat up, but that's okay. That's the way you want it. It means it's been used. And then I have the Sewing Guide for Beginners, which is just a regular magazine. So again, I'll put all the links down below. So what am I doing in this video? It's going to be step 1. And the reason why I'm doing this way is because a lot of you want to learn to sew and you watch videos where they just zoom through the stuff and they may not necessarily explain, or you feel like you're missing some steps. So I'm going to take really small baby steps as I'm doing this. So this first video is probably not going to be any sewing at all. My goal today is to show you the back of the pattern. We're going to measure to see where I fit in there, open the package, look at what the pattern is, and look at all the symbols on the pattern, and probably lay the pattern flat on the fabric and cut it. This is all I'm doing for this video. It's an easy step. So wish me luck. Let's dive right into it. We're going to look at the pattern first. So when you look at the back of the pattern, you're gonna have on the left side it's going to be in English, and on the right side it's in French, which means that on one side you're going to have inches and feet or yardage, and then on the right side you have it in the metric system. Combination A5 and E5. This is an E5 pattern, which means that it goes from size 14 to 22. If you wanted to have a smaller pattern, if you are more petite than me, obviously you would purchase the A5. So you got to remember to do that. But they tell you A5 is basically from size 6 to 14, and then E5 picks up at 14 all the way to 22. Next thing, they tell you suggested fabric, so you can use poplin, crepe, which I don't like as a fabric, cotton blends, and taffeta. It's a little bit too stiff for me, so that's definitely cotton that I'm using. So the next thing they give you is how much yardage you're going to need, but that's based on the size you're going to make, okay? So in order for you to know what size to make, you're going to have to measure yourself. And because this is a shirt, we're not looking at waistline at all. We're just basically looking at bust. So measurement at bust line for model A, B, C, or D. And the models are presented to you here at the bottom. So this is A, front and back, B, front and back, C, front and back, and that's going to be the second one that I make. But I'm making D. So this is the front of the shirt I'm making, and this is the back of it. So we need to measure my bust right here. So you just go and you follow whatever measurement you are. So let's just say, for instance, that my bust is 41.5. So then I just go and follow the column right here from 41.5. I just go all the way up here, and it tells me that I am basically a 14. So when I cut my pattern, I want to cut the pattern for size 14. Once you've determined your size, you just go down and you figure out how much yardage you need. So for instance, for pattern D, which is the one that's right here, remember that's the one I'm making, you have 2 widths of fabric. You either have the 45 inches or the wide fabric, which is 60 inches. The one I have is 45, and you need about 3 yards and 1/8, and I picked 3.5 yards. So I have enough fabric. And again, do not be concerned with the measurement that's going to come out, because remember, this is based on old pattern sizing. They've changed everything. It's called vanity sizing we have now. So when you go to the store and you fit in a pair of pants that's a size 10, chances are you're not a size 10, okay? You're not. So they want you to feel you're a 10, but you're not a 10. So I'm just going to use my tape measure here, and I'm going to do my bust line. No problem, and I'm doing it with clothes, so it's gonna add a little bit. So what am I? I'm exactly at 41. So now I have learned that most patterns are actually cut for A and B cups for bra size, okay? I'm a C. So this might be a little snug at 41, but what I'm going to do is do it at a 41.5. So I'm just gonna add a little bit of ease. I haven't learned how to adjust the pattern yet, so I'm just gonna go with 41.5. So again, if I look at my pattern for a bust of 41.5, I am a size 14. And if you remember for the tunique, when I did my bust, I was a 41.5, same thing, but they wanted me to do a size 16. So you see how it switches from pattern to pattern. This is why it's important that you take your measurements. Don't be afraid to do that. So now we know I'm a size 14, okay, on the pattern. Open the pattern and you're gonna find two things. You're gonna find this flimsy pattern paper and the instructions. So let me look at the pattern and then I'm gonna tell you everything you need to know about symbol identification. So when you open your pattern, and this paper is really, really flimsy, okay? There we go. It comes in several sheets. Let's see how many I got. One that's folded, two, and there's a third one. So I got 3 sheets in here. I'm going to put 2 to the side and we're only going to look at this. So you'll notice that I'm going super, super slow, and I'm doing it on purpose again because I'm trying to take the anxiety out of sewing for some of you who want to learn to sew, okay, and don't have anybody teaching them, just like I don't, all right? So here's what's going on here. You're going to have a pattern that's given to you, and you see it's got all sorts of markings on it that can be very, very intimidating. Don't be intimidated. Once you've cut one, it's super easy after that. So let's look at the anatomy of a pattern. First thing, there's big numbers. 1, and then this one is 8. Why is number 2 not next to it? That's because they wanted a specific space for that particular piece, and maybe it didn't fit on the other one. So don't worry about it. As long as you follow the numbers, you're fine. You just got to go and fetch number 2. It's obviously on another sheet. So you're going to see a number. Again, you're going to have McCall's, and then it's going to give you again the number of the pattern with ES 14, 16, 18, 20, and 22, which is the size that I've picked. Okay, so you always can reference back to that just in case you mix up your pieces. The second thing you need to notice is while it gives you number 1, it also tells you what it is. So this is going to be the back for A, B, C, or D. I'm doing D, so I know that very obviously this is a piece of pattern that I'm going to use for my particular shirt. So let's see what this one says. It says number 8, sleeve B, which is not mine, and you need to cut 2. It will tell you. So very obviously I am not going to use this piece because this is for pattern B and I'm doing D. Next, we're going to look at sizes because you need to know where to cut, okay? And here they are. Size 14, 16, 18, 20, or 22. And each one of them has a different set of lines. 14, which is the one I'm going to cut, is a dotted line. So anytime I'm cutting something on the patterns, I'm going to follow this line here. This is where I'm going to cut. Oh, but wait, what's this? Well, this is basically the bottom part of the back. So for this one, since I'm 14, I'm going to stop here and I'm going to follow this line here, and then at some point it joins right here and they all get cut the same. If I was 18, I would follow this line and I would cut here. So you see there's a good inch difference, right? And I would follow this way and I would go all the way down here. These 2 notches here, you're going to see them at the arm hole, and you're going to see them at the shoulder, and you're going to see them underneath the armhole, more likely towards the waist, okay? What do they mean? Those 2 here indicate the back of the garment. I know I'm looking at the back, so why are they putting 2 here? Well, because when you're going to cut your sleeves, you'll notice that your sleeves are going to have 2 notches on one side and 1 notch on the other. And that basically indicates to you which sleeve goes on the left versus which one goes on the right. So always match those two notches with the two notches that are on one of your sleeves. Otherwise, you end up with the right sleeve in the left armhole or the left sleeve in the right armhole. These indicate pleats, and we'll have to do that when we get there. Basically, what you're going to do is mark your circles. You're basically going to have to move this piece of fabric over to this. That's it, and match the two holes, and that's going to give you a pleat. So since this particular piece of pattern also has the sleeve, but for B, we're still going to look at it. I want to show you the notches I was talking about. Here are your double notches, right? You remember I told you the double notches match the double notches. So this is the part of the sleeve that goes to the back of the garment. If I go across to the other side, you'll see that I have just one notch. So that indicates that this is the part of the sleeve that's in the front of the garment, pretty much by your breast. Another one symbol you'll see a lot is that center back unfold. What does it mean? Well, basically I'm going to fold the fabric onto itself and place this on top of it. And when I cut, I can open it and I'll have basically this part here doubled. Okay, but when we get there, I'll show you. But that's basically what it means. You're going to line this up against the fold of the fabric when you fold it. Now, somewhere in there, there should be a grain line. And here it is on the sleeve. So you're going to see this symbol. It's a long arrow and it says grain line with the arrowhead going down. So what does it mean? You know, sometimes you go to the store and you see something you really like, but it just doesn't fit right. More than likely they didn't cut in the grain line. So basically what it means is that you have a direction of the weaving of the fabric. So your fabric folds nice because it's the natural way for the fabric to flow. If you were cutting your fabric at an angle, for instance, you're all crooked, right? Your grain would go this way, and what happens is that if I go like this, you can see that the fabric is kind of pulling, right? It looks like it's got a stretch. If I go this way, it doesn't have a stretch because I'm on grain, all right? When you do the back, and I just showed you where it says fold line, you don't have to worry about the grain because very obviously you're going to be folding your fabric onto itself and you're going to follow the grain doing that. But when you cut a piece on your fabric that you have to position away from the fold line, that you really need to pay attention to the grain line. Because for instance, if I was cutting that sleeve not following the grain line, even though I would have the right shape, once I put it on, the whole fabric itself would stretch in a weird way. That's how you end up having kind of like puckers, and it just doesn't fit right. Now, I've learned something the other day. Back in the days, you would have very nice patterns on fabrics and they were always in one direction. When you have fabric that has directions on it, you have a beautiful fabric, let's say, where all the bouquets of flowers are going up. You really want to make sure when you wear your garment that all the bouquets are all aligned properly. You don't want them to go this way or that way, right? Or you don't want your flowers to go up this way and on one sleeve they go down, on the other sleeve they go up. So for instance, go in your closet and go find a pattern piece, something you purchased, maybe it's pajamas, or go in your kids closet and get something they purchased, like one of those patterns that's like all over the place, right? Let's say it's Disney princesses. One of the things you're gonna see is princesses going up and princesses going down on the sleeve or on the front, and it doesn't make any sense. Why would you have the design going upside down? Well, they do it for a reason. Back in the days, you knew a good garment when all of the patterns were in the same direction, whether you were looking at the sleeves, the front, or the back, or, you know, whatever part of your garment. Today, the industry is such that they want to cut corners as much as possible and use the least amount of fabric. So most of the material you're going to find today when you buy something, let's say for instance that it's again Disney princess, you're going to see princess going up and princess going down. Why? Because the industrial cutter, the big machine that goes in and cuts a stack of fabric like this, they just need one piece. They don't want to have to waste fabric to try to get the pattern just right where they need it, right? See how they cheat us? You just learned something. So far I've shown you the basics that you're going to see on a pattern. I am sure that as we go along and cut this, we're going to find other symbols here and there, and we'll learn about them as we go. But right now I just wanted to show you how it's really not that complicated. So let me look at the instructions real quick, and we're going to do step 1 today, which is basically placing the pattern on the fabric and cutting it. And just in case you're afraid you're going to forget everything I just told you about the pattern markings, when you open your instructions, you will see that they will give you pattern markings, right? So we already talked about grain line, fold line, buttonhole, we'll get to that, button marking, we'll get to that, and then the notches and symbols and the seam allowance included unless otherwise indicated but not printed on the tissue, okay? So the seam allowance, what is that? Well, the seam allowance is really where your sewing line is going to be. So let me see if I show you this, okay? So whenever you sew something, you're gonna have leftover fabric that's behind the seam, all right, which you're gonna flat open with the iron. This piece here, this actual 3/4 of an inch or half an inch or whatever, which one is it? Here is 5/8 of an inch, which is 1.5 centimeter. I think that's standard whether you're looking at European patterns or American patterns. That's included in here. So you don't have to worry about it. What happens is that they include, when you cut your pattern and you cut your fabric, they will include the 1.5 centimeters or 5/8 of an inch. So really, if you might be looking at a piece of pattern that you cut and you go like, this looks huge. It's actually not, because you have the 5/8 on one side and you have the 5/8 on the other side that are accounted for. So really, once you sew it, it's going to shrink. You understand? So in here, they clearly tell you in the instruction that this is included unless they tell you. That's one of the reasons why you really have to look at your pattern, because you may be cutting everything thinking, oh, it's included, no problem, and then you get to the collar, you cut it along the line, and then you realize at the last minute it says seam allowance not included, which means that basically you should have cut 5/8 of an inch away from the line. Okay, so the first thing you want to do is identify which ones of these patterns here are the ones for the model that I'm doing. And I am doing D, you remember? So let's put it in the right and proper way, okay? And I know that this one is the back for A, B, C, or D. So I'm not going to cut on the lines. What I'm going to do is loosely cut around it so that I can separate it from the rest. And then I'll place it on the fabric. So I'm going to do that for all of the pieces that belong to pattern D. Alright, so here's the first one, and that's the back. I'm going to put it to the side. That's number 1. Now some people trace the patterns. They use tracing paper and special pens. I don't know how to do that. I just don't. Okay, this is number 12. It's tie for D. I'm supposed to cut 2, and that's basically the tie that goes right here on the sleeve. So again, I'm just going to go loosely around it. I'm not cutting on the line yet. Okay, so this is number 12. I'm putting that to the side. collar band for A, B, C, or D. I'm gonna need this, that's for my collar. Sleeve for model B. I am not doing model B. So what am I doing? I'm just gonna fold it back. It goes right back into the envelope. If I ever want to make model B, I know the sleeve is in there. And you know, I'm talking and talking, and it's only been 1 hour, so it just shows you that it really doesn't take that long. So why am I pressing? Well, exactly because this just happened. You see that? It was folded onto itself. So I want to make sure that my pieces are nice and flat for when I apply them to the fabric. Okay, so here's one. And I'm just going to go through all the pieces. And as I'm doing this, I'm also reading what it says, so it makes me more familiar with the pattern, where the notches are, the double notches, and any other little specification. I see that the top of the sleeve here has a grain line. So here's my fabric, and I've actually ironed it. On this one you can easily see which one is the front and which one is the back of the fabric, right? So right side and wrong side of the fabric. Now you have to determine where the salvage is. The salvage is basically the edges of the fabric. On really good fabric, what you would see is a band that's white, and that would have a color coding on it, and then it would tell you the brand and the pattern or whatever. Like for instance, this one here, the yellow one that I purchased at Hobby Lobby, you can see right here that it clearly says made exclusively for Hobby Lobby store, and the name, design number LFS 187, and then it's got a color coding right here, right? So that's definitely the salvage. So you need to know where your salvage is. This one, it doesn't say. So in this case, I'm going to consider a good 1/2 inch here as being the salvage of the fabric, because it's not clearly marked. Okay, I'm looking at the instructions, and the instructions will always tell you how to position the fabric and the pattern together. All right, so here again is the salvage, and here is the fold. So I have to fold the fabric onto itself. But wait, how do I fold it? Do I fold it with the design up or down, right side or wrong side? What they tell you right here, you have a sewing information fabric key. This is the right side, this is the wrong side. So if you look here, you have the right side on the inside. So I have to fold it onto itself. So I'm taking a length of my fabric here, and I'm going to fold it onto itself, leaving the extra on the other side. And what I'm going to do is really fold it in a way where I have a really nice fold here, okay? And it's got to match. You don't want it to be crooked. Another thing that's important to note, don't think that the lady at the counter, wherever you go, whether it's Joann or your local fabric shop, don't go assume that this lady cut the bottom part of your fabric straight. So what I'm doing here is that I'm aligning my two salvages together right here, and I'm pressing this way, and this is my fold, right? And I'm going to demonstrate to you. Look, I'm following, this is the fold, I'm following a line right here. And you can see, right? I'm over here. This is this line. I have too much on this side. Can you see that? So the lady at the store did not cut that straight. You got to remember to always check. It's very important, in particular if you have motif, specific patterns, anything that has lettering, things like that. Plus it messes up your grain anyway. So again, I'm positioning myself really nice and straight here at the fold, and I'm going to cut the bottom so that I have a straight line. And trust me when I tell you that this is very important. So you see, I'm nicely aligned here, but over here, this is all messed up. So I'm just going to cut off over here. So I'm bringing my ruler. Look at that. You see how not straight at all this is? I'm going to take my rotary cutter here and I'm basically squaring my fabric piece. Alright, so now this is nice and square. So what I'm doing here is aligning the selvage on this side, and I'm pressing this way to make sure my fold is nice and flat and it's even on both sides. I don't want any fold underneath the fabric. Okay, so the grain line. This is my selvage. This is the fold line. You can see that the fabric is folded onto itself here, all right? So anytime I have something with a grain line, I need the grain line to be parallel to this and parallel to that, exactly parallel. That's how I keep the grain, because the grain of the fabric goes this way. Again, if I go this way, you see how the fabric stretches, right? But if I go this way, the fabric doesn't really move because this is the grain line. This is where the strength of the fabric is. So again, the better way to do this is to follow exactly what they're showing you here, which is to place your fabric in a particular way to maximize the amount of fabric you use and minimize the amount of waste that you're going to have. But that's nice and good when you have a very long table and you can put all those pieces in one length. I can't, so I'm going to do number one, which is the back. We know that, and remember this is the fold line. And if you look at the pattern for piece number one, it tells you right here that this is the fold line. So that means that this piece right here needs to be placed right on the fold. You see where the fabric folds right here? And because it's on the fold line, I don't have to worry about the grain, because remember the selvage is here, the fold line is there, and these are perfectly parallel. So I know that if I follow the fold line, I'm exactly on the grain. My first piece of pattern is placed. See that? And what I did, I've been told to put the pins perpendicular to the edges and to place them on the inside of the pattern. That way when you cut, right, the pattern doesn't fly off the fabric, it stays put. And remember, this is the fold line. Now, there are some circles and places that I need to mark here. And I think that's the only ones. Okay, so how am I going to do that? I have a fabric pencil. This is actually the type that is water soluble. So if I write something on fabric like this, it will wash off. Okay, so I'm going to go straight over here and I'm going to mark these. So I know that this is where the pleat has to be marked. So I'm just gonna go ahead and mark one here, and the other one needs to be right here, and I'm gonna do another one here. I don't know if you can see, and one right here at the center. Okay, and that basically going to create a line from here to here and here to here. All right, and what will happen when I do the pleat is that I'll join that point to that point. So now all I have to do is cut, and I'm going to take my pinking scissors, and what I'm going to do again, I'm following the line for size 14, and I'm going to cut in a way where the top part of the teeth of the pinking scissors go straight on the line. I'm going to give you a close-up, don't worry. And the reason why I'm doing this with the pinking scissors is that it stops the fabric from fraying. I don't have to do zigzag. I don't have a serger, so very obviously I have to do it this way. Let me give you a close-up, and I hope you can see. All right, so I've cut this already, and I'm basically stopping the top of the teeth of the scissors straight on the line. Right? Do you see that? Can you see that I stopped right on the line? So I'm just gonna go ahead and do the whole back. I will stop and come back to you when I get to the notches. So what I'm gonna do is use the other scissors and go straight across like this, right? And I'm going to notch this once, twice, 3 and 4. So I basically followed the pattern and created my 2 notches right here, and now just keep going. So here's the back. It's been cut, and unfortunately for me it's 6 o'clock and I have to stop, so I'm just gonna remove my pins, and you can see that I did the notches where they needed to go. I want to work neatly, so I'm putting all my pins back where they belong. And now, because remember I was on the fold line, I can open this, and here is the back of my shirt. Okay, however, I have the pleats mark only on one side, so what I need to do, I had them marked on this side. I need to take the pattern and put it the other way around like this, making sure I'm right where my notches are, and I need to re-mark my pleat on the other side here. Okay, so I've never done a pleat before, and I'm trying to figure out what we're going to do. I like to do that before I read the instruction. I have 4 points here, 2 here, 2 here, 2 here, and 2 here. And what I think we need to do is take the 2 that are on this side, and we're going to join them to the 2 here, and the 2 that are on this side, join them to the 2 that are here. And that's going to create the pleat that's in the back of the shirt. Anyway, I'm going to stop here. Why? Because I don't want you to be saturated. I don't want it to be too much information. Remember, these videos that I'm putting together for this sew along are really for people who are scared of sewing, want to learn, but very anxious they're going to make mistakes. So I purposely do it really baby step by baby step. We've cut so far 1 piece of fabric, and that is the back. Remember, the back will have a pleat. Okay, we're done with this. When I come back next week, because I'm going to do that every week, but I'll probably put 4 videos per week to do that. I will have done most of the pattern cutting, but I will reserve one for the beginning of the next video, which is going to be the dart, because I need to show you how to mark the dart. Everything else is pretty much the same. Oh, and the buttonholes, we'll mark that too. But everything else is pretty much the same. You just cut the way I showed you. You mark where your notches are. Wherever there's a circle, you go ahead and you mark it. I'm just learning. I understand the pattern is not for everybody, but I want to learn to sew. I want to share my journey with you on how I am learning and teaching myself how to sew, and I'm really hoping that this is going to encourage you. For those of you who are still ambivalent, on the fence, I don't know if you can do it. Yes, you can. Yes, you can do it. I'm giving you all the instructions in super small increments. Don't worry about it. As I said earlier, relax. You're learning, so am I. If you have tips, comment down below. Send me an email, send me a letter, contact me. I am ready to absorb all the knowledge I can get. I am like a sponge when it comes to stuff like this. Send it over. Send it over. I will gladly follow your advice, but I think I did pretty good so far. I will talk to you later. Thanks for watching, you guys. Bye! Hey, it's me, and guess what? Click that thumbs up if you really like this video. Thumbs down twice if you didn't. You can also share my video if you really liked it, or save it to watch later. Also, you can subscribe to my channel, but don't forget to click that bell button so you are always notified when I post a new video. Thank you for watching.